So yeah, as Sarah said, my name's Dave. Over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be talking about breaking free from SIEMs. We tend to take a first principles data-driven approach when we come and speak at these conferences, but also weaving in the human side. So we'll share some stories from existing customers, and then we'll break it down into, like I say, as first principles and share some data with you. We'll talk about real-world AI impact, because as we've already heard today, this is a space that's moving at an incredibly fast pace. We'll talk a little bit about our intelligence cloud, and then, of course, some next steps, which I'm sure from a product management point of view, you'll be glad to hear. Can I see a show of hands who actually has a SIEM at the minute in the audience? Great. All right. It's one of the fastest growing particular spaces in cybersecurity at the minute. Who also completely trusts their SIEM to catch the critical threats? Okay, not as many hands going on. Okay, well, this hopefully will be relevant. Our best customers really come to us in one of three categories. So either they don't have a SIEM, and this is the fastest growing category. So within the SMB space and the mid-market space, it's being driven, or adoption is being driven very much by supply chain security and increasing regulation. Basically, if you want to do business to business, you've got to prove you're a good custodian of your customers' data. And so for the first time, really, security implementations can be tied directly to revenue. The second one is those that have a SIEM, but actually will struggle with some of the topics that we're going to talk about. And then the third people, the ones that are really hurting, are those who've got like 2 or 3 SIEMs, believe it or not, who want to consolidate those things down. So what are the common issues that we see with SIEMs today? Well, the first one, it can be a cost or scalability nightmare, and we'll talk about that, in particular the impact of cost shock. The other next big factor is people then drowning in noise of the alerts coming from the SIEM. So how can we try to manage that in the AI era? And then, of course, the manual processes around managing these things on a day-to-day basis. But as opposed to me just like telling you about it, let me share some stories. The names are real, the pictures are AI generated, but Jo is a CIO in the retail industry. She worked with us in one of our businesses before, and then when she moved to a pre-IPO retail company, she said to the CISO, who was part of the topco, hey, I think we should bring in SenseOn, because I've seen this playbook happen before in terms of where costs can really spiral out of control. That conversation wasn't welcomed at all, and actually they were very, very happy with their initial approach. But as we've seen time and time again, and I'll explain why this happens so commonly in just a second, the company experienced cost shock. And it was actually at this conference in Manchester last year that then their head of security engineering booked a meeting with me and was like, hey, actually, our security program is frozen. The CFO is going mental, and we can no longer afford to put any more data into our SIEM. Can you help us out? The next one is drowning in noise. This is Mel. Mel was the CISO of a global manufacturing company. It was actually a subsidiary of a large public company. Unfortunately for Mel, a month after getting into the role, the whole business suffered a ransomware attack. And how they got in, interestingly, was because through the topco, they pivoted down through and managed to encrypt all of the data in the manufacturing company, so much so that for about 18 months later, it impacted the products that they were manufacturing. They got a load of complaints from the customers. When we did the root cause analysis with her, the issue was in the MSSP that they were using, the alerts that the attacker left were just the same alerts that they had seen 50, 100, 150 times a day. And so they weren't able to connect the dots. And this false positive problem can have impacts just as what we've just discussed. And then, sorry, I am being doom and gloom this morning. Chris is the head of SOC of a European tech company, one of the very successful ones, contracts with a lot of big Silicon Valley companies. To manage his SIEM, he had an outsourced team in India. He had 8 folks. Unfortunately, the salary inflation for people in cybersecurity, which is great for people sat in this room, is going up pretty high. Within 1 week, Chris had 4 members of his team put their notice in. And the lowest salary increase that they experienced was a 40% uplift. In the salary, the biggest was 100%. So when he went to the CFO, can you imagine what the CFO said? It was like, hey, sorry, Chris, we can't afford to match those salary hikes. And this is where things begin to get rushed. Within a month, then, he was also transitioning to MSSPs, and they also got ransomware. 86 gigs worth of data stolen and published on the internet. And when we did the root cause analysis with that, it was the management and upkeep of their existing SIEMs with having to write manual correlation rules, with the drop-off in the team had really caused the issues there. So there is some big problems out there with SIEMs, as these stories illustrate. And a lot of the reason is this graph here, okay? So this graph shows data volumes produced, adopted, and consumed in the world over time, and it's forecasted out to 2030. And so in 2025, we expect 187 zettabytes of data to be produced, adopted, and consumed. That goes up to 387 by 2028. To put that in context as a mental picture, if 1 byte equaled 1 grain of rice, you could fill the Pacific Ocean with 1 zettabytes worth of rice. So trying to find signal within that noise can be really quite challenging to do. Anyone invest in the stock market casually, like, either through their pension or just like meme stocks? Anyone? Yeah, a few of us. All right, great. Okay, so you guys are going to get the concept of compound interest. Albert Einstein once gave us this very wise quote. Turns out he was quite a smart guy, because the same thing applies to our data. So if you take that data curve that's exponentially increasing, the compound annual growth rate of data within the enterprise is around about 28 to 42%, to give you an idea. And around about 35% of data in the enterprise gets logged. So you can begin to see the impact on that data curve over time. So if you are an enterprise and you are producing 100 terabytes a year, you're going to be logging around about 35 gigs of that. To give you that some context, that's around about 100 gigs a day. 100 gigs a day of logs is around about what a regulated 500 to 700 person org should be sort of producing or recording on a daily basis. And so in your first year, if you take an average sort of price of current SIEM providers, you're going to be paying 132K. But as you can see, this quickly ramps up year after year if you want to store that data for 12 months. In an exponential fashion as well. So going back, what this graph shows is the data volumes on the left, just representing this graph, and how much you are paying on the right. And so you can see here the cost at the average price of $3.70 per gig goes up. Now, as you go up in data volumes, you can get slightly cheaper price. But one of the things that we've been working on very, very hard at SenseOn, because of this fact, is how do you get that data cost as low as possible? And currently, we've got around about this 60 cents per gig. Now, anyone got an idea in year 10 how much you're going to be paying a year? Anyone? A lot. Yeah, exactly. So because of the exponential curve, you're now paying at those growth rates around about 3 million. That's why CFOs lose their shit, basically, because they see this coming. And normally we see this in about 18 months of a SIEM implementation, this cost shock really sort of heading home and like, whoa, we didn't sign off for this type thing. So really important to manage expectation in that regard if you're implementing a SIEM. Okay, so here's a really simple high-level schematic example. I apologize for the small writing, but these are the sort of architectural setups. The vast majority of people outsource to a partner to help them manage their SIEM, unless you're in the very, very top sort of elite companies like the Fortune 50 or whatever. And this is a very common setup where we get called in to help. So these are the bottlenecks caused by this data problem. So there's an intimate relationship between the data ingested and the alerts produced, as you could imagine, okay? And sometimes what CISOs do is they restrict the number of analytics in their SIEM to try to control that noise, or they're forced with the choice to restrict the data going into the SIEM, none of which is great from a risk point of view. Okay, so this is a 10,000 person financial services organization headquartered in London, but 11 locations worldwide. And when they came in and asked us to help, they had a couple of bottlenecks. So firstly, their stock was limited to 225 tickets per month, but they were getting far more alerts. The other bottleneck was their ability to write new detections over the data was very limited. So actually, in 18 months, they only wrote 36 new detections. The other issue is that they were only ingesting, they were paying 400K to ingest 200 gigs per day. Now, if you remember back to the last graph, that's nowhere near enough data that they actually needed to get the data coverage that they actually required. And so as this bottleneck goes along, they had 95% false positives being passed to the internal SOC. They didn't have much context, and the MTTR was up to about 8 hours. So what we did is we come in and help them. And I'll tell you exactly how we do this in just a second. So we're able to lower the case volume. So 93% of all cases are investigated and closed using our Sensory AI. And straight away, we've got over 1,100 analytics out of the box. This means the SOC now has the capacity to fully remediate most of the alerts, and the MTTR can be reduced to 30 minutes. This really is the advantage that you can deliver with what is happening in the world of AI at the minute. So a cost saving, huge improvements in KRIs. It's conscious time. Okay, so this data here is from a Fortune 1000 company. All right, so there's about maybe 12 to 14,000 people. And so you can see how the platform can automatically take billions and billions of events, investigate them automatically with over 37,000 events investigated, and raising only 66 cases for review over a 30-day period. So that's real-world data from a platform that I just screenshotted last night when pulling this together. And as the platform tracks mean time to investigate and mean time to respond, average time to acknowledge 9 minutes, average time to investigate 7 minutes, 16 minutes time to respond. And so you can put that in the context of your own organization in terms of what you can achieve in a Fortune 1000 org. So how do we do this? Well, I've been banging my gums quite a lot about data, and it really does start with the data. It is so important. We've got a load of technology in our enterprises now that we need to be able to acquire data really easily and really quickly, but we've got to treat that data really importantly, especially if you want AI to be able to take advantage of it later. So the ability to do edge filtering, unification, and enrichment at source is really important. So we unify identity, endpoint, and full deep packet inspection and network at source, and that saves you a load of problems down the line of the data pipeline because the AI has got the context to understand what is going on to the left and what is going on to the right of the event that it's looking at. It's important to have intelligent routing, especially to very cheap storage, and to be able to analyze data on that cheap storage. And then, of course, the controls and agentic AI layer. We could do a whole talk on agentic AI. It is a fascinating space, but fundamentally what it means for outcome is that the jobs that we do today in the next 2 years are going to look very different, because huge amounts of automation, huge amounts of autonomy is going to be able to go to AI, and our jobs and what we do on a daily basis, like I say, is going to be hugely impacted. The time to deploy these things, no longer are you doing, 6-month project plans, 12-month project plans. You're going to be able to roll these out very quickly. And then the human layer, which of course is very important, it means that as a sort of managed service provider, you are able to pass alerts across with huge context, fused data, and that's why you're able to get that mean time to remediate down so low. Great. All right, sorry, I see what you're doing. So let me very quickly wrap up. So this is the benchmarks, 94% false positive rate and average down to 9, 93% of cases investigated using AI. Next steps, come and see us at the booth, connect with us, follow on LinkedIn, and please do visit the website, sign up for a newsletter. Thank you very much for listening.